Hello and welcome to the Upanisads. This is the summary video for the Upanisads. We've actually finished all of them, all of the chapters of the Upanishads, and gone through the entire a very large volume of work. So this is a summary that I wanted to go through to try to bring everything together and to show you how it compares with the Nagamadi. If you refer back to my summary video for that, you'll see very similar things occurring there. So let me just bring up the presentation now, and then we'll go through the summary. There's a little message at the end I want to go in. So what is the Upanishads? So the Upanishads, again, to summarize, they are a large body of work from various sages, ascetic seers who went into what was called the third passage of life, in what is described in the Vedas back in the 1600 BC. This was where you grow up and you become a student as a child. You don't have a family and you raise a family, you have offspring, you have cattle, you do your service and your responsibilities there. But once that's done, you move away into what's called a reclusive life of renunciation, to then transcend yourself into higher states of enlightenment, to remove yourself from the cycle of rebirth, which is what all of the Vedic texts are moving us towards, and what the Nagamadi is also moving us towards. In the Vedas, it's called moksha. In the Nagamadi, it's called originating. And this is what they're both moving us towards, through different teachings and words, but actually telling you the same thing. And the Vedas are written in such a way of the 1200 BC in that it focuses on life in that epoch. Okay? So back then, it was simple life. It was farming. It was very traditional. It was very orthodox, very old-fashioned rules about family structures, women, men, children, and their roles and responsibilities in family structures and in communities. Is where people had cattle, worked on land, lived in small villages, small, very, very small communities, and much more simpler but harsh lives, but had three phases and things around them were looked upon as conduits and avenues and channels, or nadis, pipes, to enlightenment, to know what the purpose of life was, which was what the Vedas and the Upanisads were all about teaching. Various people determined that was their life purpose and chose the free will decision to go off into those ascetic paths. And they wrote their understandings and what they were coming to them through the involution of spirit from within to without. So they were experiencing spirit from within, but expressing it externally and observing the world, themselves, the nature, the physical world, the senses, the elements, the wind, the rain, the sun, the cosmic bodies, and seeing all of this connectedness as channels and understanding as to how one absorbs the all, because the all is something so infinite. All humanity have always done is split it into compartmentalized things of deities and forms and demigods, and giving them names and structures, and separated everything that they observed in the world, in the cosmos, in their personal lives, their bodies, their minds, their eyes, their hands, and saw all these aspects of the divine and formulated it as such. And this is exactly what the Nagamadi did with the archons representing sun, moon, Mars, planets, the demiurge. I don't believe that we're in an illusion of the spirit, but that was that universal playground was created by the divine in which we entered. The bodies, well, they were manipulated by forms within the universe, because it's just a physical abstraction of energy. The spirit itself enters this playground, which is formed through karmic forces, creation, preservation, destruction. But the Upanisads here, as we're going back to what I was talking about, uses all of that, and the language it uses is determined by the epoch of its time. It's very complex, convoluted, sometimes hard to understand, because it uses all of these languages. And and the Rig Vedas were the four preceding Vedas which talk about ritual, sacrifice, prayers, chanting, this is all the underlying, and the Upanisads were the esoteric version of them, but they utilize and refer back to one or more of these underlying Vedas. And all of those comprise what's known as Vedanta, which is a body of knowledge towards spiritual ascent, which is what the Upanisads are, the fifth, if you like, writing of the Vedanta as a whole, altogether. And I used this book, which was funny story around that. I was looking to buy the Upanisads, looking online on Amazon to find a volume that was comprehensive enough in its most original form that I could find, because I don't like translations of original texts. I like the original text translated. I don't like them messed with, just translated all and thoroughly from Sanskrit. And I was looking for that, and then I went to my mother's home back in the United Kingdom, and I was cleaning out the cellar, or the basement as it's called here, looking for something else, as it were. And I stumbled across this book in the box in the basement. I was looking for one, and I was being asked to draw onto the right one for me, and that one was in the box in my mother's basement, so I ended up bringing that to my home in the United States, and I did these videos on that book. So it was a synchronous event. I was looking for this book, I was going to buy it, and there it was, already in my mum's home in the basement in a box that wasn't opened for many, many years with dust all over it. So I was meant to use this book, and I found it very, very, very good. So I was given the perfect volume to produce these videos. So let's go on to the next one. So what does Vedanta means? End, conclusion, knowledge. Vedanta means sitting at the seat of. The Vedas mean sitting at the seat of knowledge. Conclusion. What are the conclusions of these ascetics? What is the end conclusion that they're giving us in this scriptural compilation called the Upanisads, which is the Vedanta of compilation of knowledge? The Upanisads do contain obtruse. It's difficult. It's obtruse. It's philosophical, complex writing, but it's because it's of its time. It's written this way because it's 1200 BC to 400 BC. The Bible and the Nag Hammadi was almost 800 years after. Completely different language. Life has moved on. The way people lived moved on. Small villages moved to larger communities and towns and cities. Countries were forming. So this kind of thing changed the way language was used and how things were perceived then. Other avatars came and went. Buddha, Christ. So we had different interpretations. People had evolved spiritually and knew things differently and then articulated things in different ways. And that's why you find scriptures narrated differently, written differently, from the very, very ancient to the newer. When I say newer, they're still 2,000 years old. And the Upanisads are not thought of a single philosophy, but are a variety of interpretations from many ascetics and seers, many contributors articulating what they were feeling. And then, as I said, the Vedas were comprised of Rig, Yajur, Samar, and Atharva, and they had different things of praise, of songs, formulas, sacrificial formulas, magical things, and melodies, and rituals, each documenting different things. And the Upanisads concentrated on Brahma, the knowledge of Brahma, the knowledge of self, the passage to that esoteric, so from an esoteric sense, a sense of deep state of thinking, Om, contemplation, meditation, silence, reclusiveness, renunciation. That's what the mantra was of the Upanisads. And they were brought together by what was called Aranyakas, which were sacred treatises by Aranas, which is basically where the Aranyakas came from, the word. And they were people who lived in forests predominantly, but also caves and other reclusive places. And some of the main things you'll find here is Maya, is magic or illusion, or also personal force, personal free will. Advidya is ignorance, Vidya is wisdom, Prakriti is primal nature. You'll come a lot of these Sanskrit words which I've translated, and some of them I've listed here, and other ones I've listed in very early chapters of this series. So go back and get those because they come through over and over again. I try not to put too many of those in the videos, as you found, because it dilutes it too much and can get overly complex. Okay, so other Sanskrit terms was ahamkara, which is self, being, or with nature. And it always talks about ears, skin, eyes, tongues, anus, genitals, and things like that. Remember, I've mentioned it uses all things as channels and also expressions of the divine. So the mind and 10, which is basically 10 sense organs, and the mind, which is referred to in the 10 sense organs of the ears, the skin, the eyes, tongue, nose, anus, genitals, hands, feet, and speech. The 5 perceptions were smell, light, hearing, sight, hearing, touch, and taste. The 5 actions, forms of action, our mouth to speak, hands and feet to move and touch, excretion organs and reproductive organs. This is used over and over again, and it actually goes into further. It talks about the moon, the sun, the planets, the cosmos. It talks about the wind, the weather, the rain. It talks about clouds. It talks about ether. It talks about water. It introduces everything into the narrative as aspects of either perception or actions to bring in enlightenment, or perceptions in through which the divine comes into us or expresses out of us. Mind and 10 in which we can feel and sense things, in which the divine expresses itself. It goes on, it uses every possible element we could think of to do it, and these are some of the areas it looks at. And some of the levels it talks about was the absolute. Now if you look at the Nagamadi, it also talks about this, the supreme Godhead. We've got the orthogenes, protophanes, and I forget the lower one, but it talks about those levels as well. He talks about the Sophia energy. He talks about the demiurge energy. These are formations of the world. But this is talking about the difference here. This is talking about also deities defining the way the cosmos is built, but also spiritual enlightenment phases. So the absolute is where we're trying to go. The spaceless timelessness of the divine grace. The Brahma pure consciousness is how we get to that. What we're trying to achieve from within ourselves. The Brahma consciousness is the divine spirit within us, with a supercosmic transcendental self of the breath of God, is how we get into sustaining, how we get towards the absolute all possibility, or the divine God, the grace. But then there are also these deities, the Ishvara, the supreme God, which is the total sum of the universe, Hiranyagarbha, which is the golden gem, which is what acts as the waters, which is the cascading of the universe, and then you've got Prajapati, the god, the deity of creation, and so forth, and then the world and the universe manifests from it. The only 2 realities are 1 and 2. 1 and 2 are the 2 realities here. Our infinite spirit within, the consciousness that we're reigniting and moving our soul towards, and the absolute, which is the grace, the devoid of darkness, of the empty space of all things, is where we're trying to re-emerge back into and move ourselves from reincarnative cycle, which is this world. And this passage here, from here to integrate our integration into here, thus implies a movement into here. Buddhi is the seed of spiritual awareness, and the 3 circles of matter. The inner circles are of matter, and the Satya is purity, the Rajas is passion, and the Tamas is darkness in energy, lethargy and darkness. Moksha is a release from rebirth. You'll find that term. Now I wanted to talk about this. Now this is a great diagram. You might want to pause and just reflect on this yourselves. But this talks about the structures in which the Vedas talk about, and I got this from Google. It talks about Brahman, which is the Godhead. And if you look at the Nagamadi as well, it has very, very similar structure with the upper realms, the deities, the angelic realms, the Sophia energy, the various eons, the upper eons and the lower eons, and then the demiurge and the archons. This is the same. The demiurge and the archons represented the moon, the Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn. We had the upper eons that represented the creator forces. The supreme, which was Barbello, was the supreme controller underneath the Brahma energy, which was where the seed of everything came, where Sophia came. In here, he's talking about Brahman being the supreme, the ground of being, the Godhead, the divine grace itself. This is the same structure, different terms, different deities, but the same breakdown. that you'll see here. The passage, you see Vishnu, Brahma, the creative forces of creation, preservation or conservation or transformation or destruction, which is the primary forces driving karma and energy and intention and thought, which manifests our world into what we experience, to evil or not, or indifference. We move through these channels, we move through the lower realms of the cosmic bodies and the moon as being aspects of expression of divinity, but also given names because of energy which dictate when we're born in terms of our zodiac sign. The energy footprint of our leaning in life is driven by the celestial bodies. Then we move through all of these, through the expressions of fire, water, east and west, north and south, the directions of the planet, which we move through. And then we move through here, we go through the various incarnations, states of incarnation, move through love, through desire, through the supports of, then we move through ethical use, we move through, these are conscious states of evolution, moving through states of incarnation, okay, through the lowest to the highest, the Buddhic and the Kalki, which has been the upper. This should be turned upside down, actually, in my view. Then we go through all of these powers of time, power of hunger, power of perfection, knowledge, sacrifice, death, poverty, cruelty, dominion, prosperity. These are things we pass through. These are all given names and deities or eons to represent them. So this is the same if you represent this. So why am I telling you this? Well, this is because this is how humanity over the eons have expressed. It understands that there's a greater knowing above us, around us, within us. It's the all. But to understand this infiniteness, this all, for the human mind must be broken down. The Nagamadi does it. All faiths do it, or religions do it, in some way or another. And the Upanisads have done the same thing. The Vedas have done the same. Hinduism does the same thing. It has got to represent factors, elements of what it sees as the divine. But the writings state that there is only one divine. These are all abstractions, things that we create to help us understand the divine, but ultimately there is only the divine, the one Godhead. It's actually written in the Upanisads. So I just wanted to express this to show you that the hierarchical structure, when the one in the Nagamadi that I did, if you look at that, it's the same. Knowledge is the same. The direction is the same. The cascading passage is the same. The information just presented differently through different religions, different faiths, different languages, different epochs. But they all have something to tell us, and the same message, the same structures. So we mustn't discriminate and think one or the one that we're on is the passage supreme, because it is not. Absorb everything, become like a child, and know that we know nothing, as Socrates would say. To understand all that we know is to know that we know nothing at all. And so this is what I'm trying to explain on this, and to compare it so you can go back and look at that. And this is what you're saying in the Viraj is the gross body, the energy force, the gross body, Hiranyagarbha being the golden seed, Ishvara being the creator of the universe, and then we've got the Brahma aspects, the unvested non-being, and the manifested Brahman supreme being, and the Brahman within ourselves. This is a picture again I took from in the internet to help you understand how the expression from our bodies to our energetic subtle bodies, to understand what we are in terms of universal self, and then moving into the absolute self. This is our cosmic journey of expansion. Again, so this was a tattva. Tattvas are parts or principles or aspects. And I got this from this website, Saivism. Aspects of nature. Their presence or absence or combination and permutation play an important role in the creation of the diversity of the worlds. Their objects and their beings, individual bodies, limbs, organs. In short, their aggregation and segregation constitute the building blocks of the whole material manifestation. So this is why I brought this out. This is again to express why in the Vedas they brought all these things out, as because they were not only aspects of the entirety of manifestation, but also in which the permutation or combination or the presence of the divine is expressed to us, within us, as part of us, and around us. So you can see here that that was basically effectively saying that we have in Tamas, which is the three, part one of the three, the Tamas and the Sattva. We can see here is, we've got sound, ether, air, touch, form, fire, flavour, water, smell, and earth, lower principles and elements. Then we have the actions and the mobility, remember, and the other things, the indras of cognition, of perception, and of action here. So we have the skin, the tongue, the eye, the nose, the ear, and then of action, hands, feet, speech, excretion, and regeneration. This all comes up over and over. These are the aspects in which we perceive and also execute our journey, in which we understand it. These are the elements that that represent the manifest, if you like, that which is the material manifestation. This is our passage in through we express and understand, and it, from within to without, our spirit expresses outwardly through these pathways of cognition and action. Then we move on into further states of awareness, into unmanifest awareness, or prakriti, the state of equilibrium with those three aspects of ourselves, of sattva, rajas, and tamas. This is what it's saying, and then we move into great awareness of unmanifest intelligence, into the knower and intelligent subject, which is Purusha. So this is talking about, again, I wanted to show you this, to show you why these things are shown. In the Nagamani, they're very similar as well. They do use the ear, the nose, the hands, the feet. They concentrate on the elements and the cosmos, but this is broken down further into hands, feet, ear, here and there. But it's also very similar to what the Nagamadi is saying as well. So I wanted to show you this. Again, this again came from Kora. How many gods are there? Well, there are many, many, many gods in the Vedas. It's limitless, really. But the 33 main gods of the Vedas. So we have the spheres of existence, mind, and principles. Remember, again, broken down aspects of ourselves, and then you've got cosmic aspects, you've got material aspects, you've got elemental aspects, all given deific names, just like in the Nagamadi. So within the Vasus, which is the sphere of existence, you've got the cosmic bodies. So you've got earth, space, all the elements, earth, space, atmosphere, constellations. And then you've got the active principle of those. So in earth, the active principle is fire. Fire is the formative principle of form. Space, you've got wind. Atmosphere, you have the sun. Constellations, you have the moon. Over here, you have the 10 breaths of life. Remember what those were? There were actually 5 main ones, but they talk about 10 here. And the mind, which we call the Rudras. You've got joy, wisdom, mind, life force. So Ananda, Jnana, Manas, Prana are the, there's another one here, it's not that one, it's, I think it's Sana, are the 5 main breaths. And these are representing joy, wisdom, mind, life force, speech, self, and Purusha being the all. And you've got other aspects here called the 7 principles. So you've got them here of action, chivalry, friendship, inheritance, vivifier, the mighty, pervader. These are all aspects of how we go through things, and you've got more explanation down at the bottom. What this is basically saying in culmination is that humanity has broken down the essence of the divine into every aspect we can possibly think of. In the Upanisads, it was broken down even further than the Nagamadi, and this was because more granular levels of aspects of ourselves, our fingers, hands, nails, our eyes, our breath, our nose, our regenerative organs, our discretive organs. These were all used because in the epoch of those times, they looked around and understand everything to be divine. And therefore it was used as expressions of the divine and given Sanskrit names associated with them, or deities or demigods associated with clusters of those things. So this is why I'd like to wanted to present that it's important for us to understand that all of these faiths that we're going to pass through, these belief systems, these scriptures, they're going to be giving us very similar messages, and they're going to be cascading them very sort of like this. But the newer, the more recent these things are, the less abstraction that they use. The more ancient you get in the text, the more abstractions you will see, the more metaphor you will see, the more use of everything that exists that you could possibly attach you will see. The Vedas are some of the oldest scriptures that exist to us that we can access. 1600 BC, and so it uses this. If you go to Nag Hammadi, written AD, it's very similar, but then it's gone into demiurge and archons, but use this, split the same cosmic principles, elemental matters, wind, rain, fire, all of those things are still used and broken out and given names, given deities and idols or eons associated with them. So this is why I wanted to show why the message is the same. We'll go through the message shortly. So what is the message? Well, it's a simple one. I've been talking about the ring not passing this, and many people talk. It's called moksha, release from rebirth, or it's called autogenes in the Nag Hammadi. What is that? Well, it's a ring not pass. What is a ring not pass? Well, it's just energy. It's perception. It's attachment and bondage. Remember, bondage, talked a lot about bondage. This is an art diagram by Raymond Shaw in the Saatchi Art Museum, which they're willing to sell. I think it's got a lot of money. This is just a copy of it. But you see here, the passage through. Then you see the universe, or you could call this the earth. Abstract it how you wish. This is the ring not pass around it. What does it mean? Well, reincarnation is real. And what it effectively means is, why does reincarnation happen? Why are souls, or spiritual energy, rather the soul, bouncing in and out of reincarnative life in a realm where people don't understand why they even come here? Because of the world doesn't seem to be going into a very positive place year on year, incarnation after incarnation, if you like. Why bother? Well, the reason is when we came, our spirit was cascaded into form. We became lost and detached from our source and our grace almost immediately. Upon inception, as soon as our breath was brought into the very first form that we ever occupied, as beings of our spiritual I occupied many lives, many forms, not just this one. The first one, we became detached, we became lost, we lost our connection with the divine grace, our beginning, our middle and our end. Well, we may have no end. We don't have an end unless the divine deems it so. We're infinite beings. We drop into a realm of experience called this universe, or the multiverse. And in that we experience what is called free will. We experience all elements of ourselves, because the divine wishes to express and understand itself, therefore create, through thought and intention, created what's called differentiation, as the Vedas would describe it, which is basically the universe and form and matter, existence, foundational forces, karma, energy, thought, intention, all driving form, constantly aware of itself. As those spiritual beings start to become and gain what's known as attachments to it. Karma. What's karma? Karma is basically attachments. What are lessons? They're attachments. We start to gain attachments, we start to identify with the physical, and we start to forget our non-physical. We start to disregard the essence of our spirit. We start to dismiss grace even exists. Atheism. The more we've done this over the infiniteness of the creation of time, the creation of form itself, and time only exists in matter, the realm of matter, we become more and more and more detached and more attached to this realm. This keeps us attached here. This binds us to incarnate here, because our perceptions, which were from our inception, were of pure grace. Our core, I believe, is always with grace. It's a fractal of ourselves is coming here. expressing itself. Our source, our core is always in grace because we came from the thought of grace. That thought is our core. It sits with grace. The expression of it is here as our divine spirit in this body, but our soul is an outward expression of us, our being. This being, our soul, is attached here, has become identified with here. Some are so lost that they don't believe a grace exists and that this body is all that there is, and the only gods that they have is mind and science and their egos. So the more that we drift towards this, the more attachment we have to this realm, and that is what the ring not pass is. What is it? It's basically us in a vibrational and perceptual and a conscious state, so far away from our divine state that we are unable to release ourselves from this realm because we are in resonance with the realm. We are not in resonance with anything beyond it. And if we're not in resonance with anything beyond it, then we are remaining in the frequency of this. In incarnational life after life, we bound back in. This ring is not physical, it's energetic, it's consciousness. This ring around that you see is a consciousness binding to this realm. It's where, because our perceptions are moved towards our grace, is not sufficient, expanding enough to move us beyond the vibration of this invisible energetic ring of consciousness and perception. The dismissal of God will keep you here. The dismissal of your own spirit will keep you here. The attachment to material things will keep you here. The attachment to obsession with mind, intellectual, with science, with technology, and obsession with things, that's the gods, will keep you here. The attachment with your loins and sex and perversion and deprivation and depravity will keep you here. The attachment to physical things, even the attachment to beings, to this earth, to the way it looks, to the attachment thinking that you are of this universe will keep you here. What the Vedas and the Nag Hammadi are trying to explain to us is that we need to move into our spirit and start to understand the reality of realities, the truth of truths, of our physical and our God, our divine realities. That the divine exists, because this is all within it. We need to move into this space, the resonance of the divine, and through that we will drift out of this ring, because our frequency and our expression and awareness is so great and expanded that nothing can keep us here. We evolved past. This is what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is the release of knowledge, continual release of knowledge. And moksha and autogenes is the release from physical rebirth in the realm of form, and in moving the expression of ourselves back to where it's always supposed to have been, always connected to, is the divine realm of darkness and emptiness and the void of everything, of love and grace and peace and prosperity, of tranquility and possibility and probability. But we're stuck here, we keep bouncing because we're not able to get out of this ring not pass. So this is what all this passage is all about. Whether you want to believe me or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you want to understand incarnation exists or not, it doesn't matter. Because there's a reality, and there's only one reality. There's only one divine grace. There are no gods, there are no demigods that we need to worship. There is only one divine grace. Everything else is in this astral space. In the demons and the dark ones are in the astral space with this universe. They live within this bind. They can never get out of this bind because they're of this bind. They're manifested in this bind. They were created by form in this bind, and they live in this dimensional, multi-dimensional. And what a dimension, just states of frequency and a perception. The more we expand in our enlightenment and our grace, we move out into dimensional frequencies of perception and consciousness, so we can see and perceive the all. It's not physical space, it's an energetic state. So they're all here. We need to move ourselves out of here, and this is what this passage is for, this is what this channel is for. This is what the Upanisads are for, the Nag Hammadi is for, the Bible is for, the Buddhist texts are for, and all the others that we will be visiting and passing through together. But this is what I wanted to explain. What all of these are the things that we've gone through: the deities, the demigods, the archetypes, the metaphors, the analogies, the eons, the demiurges, the archons. All of these things represent aspects of this material world to help us understand that this reality is from a much, much greater reality. And that greater reality is the divine Brahman, or the Godhead, or the Supreme, or the Absolute, whatever you wish to call it. And that's where we need to go. So, go through this again if you wish. Stay on some of these pages. But remember that the second coming is you. All of these scriptures are saying this, are asking you to follow this guidance, to go to that passage of your inner church yourself. Because the stone, before you reach the farther shore, is going to be your own stone. And there's not going to be any doctrine or any religion, or any rabbi, priest, pope, or guru, or sage, or psychic, or medium, or seer, or person professing that they're the conduit of God on a balcony. It'll just be you. You are the conduit to grace. It's always been you, and it always will be you. And I hope this message is sitting well with you. It will on your journey. Just persevere and become it. Move your soul towards your grace. Don't let it go to other passages. Let the lost, or those what I call those who dwell here, move their souls into the satanic, the Luciferian, the astral demonic planes, because that's the gods that they sacrifice to, and that's where those gods that they worship are and possess them energetically. And you can see them. It's in their eyes, the darkness of their souls. They will always be here. I call them those who dwell here. And I'll be doing a series on them when I've finished the many scriptures I want to go through. They use magic and illusion to govern and try to drive and control their own states of consciousness and incarnational cycles. It exists. It's real. Remember that infinite possibility and probability exists in the realm of grace, and it exists here because we are in the realm of grace. Everything is probable and possible through thought and intention, and energy cascading into it, and that's what sacrifice is. Positive or negative, we choose. And become it. Cascade it into your life and do what you resonate with. But keep following the passage. It's a difficult one, and remember, you won't achieve it in one lifetime, but you will start where you left off. You can't go backwards. You can go forwards, but you won't go backwards in form, but you can go backwards in expression. So don't regress in your nature. Move forward in your nature. And remember, you're never alone. The divine is always with you. It's always been with you. Speak to the silence. Speak to the contemplative state in your meditative side. Ask to be guided, ask to be given sign, syncretism, number, symbol, and bents, and ask for those divine beings from the realm of grace to assist you. Because they will. And they're always around. The grace of the divine, of Christ, the Krishna consciousness, the Buddhic, all the others are around you always. You're never, ever, ever alone. Remember this. There is never any time you are alone. You may be physically alone in a room, but you are never, ever alone, because the divine grace is always with you, embracing you with love. Just allow it out and speak to them. Speak to it. Speak to the forms that you cannot yet feel, because you will feel them. Okay, so I want to say thank you again for listening to all of this. I do appreciate it, and I'm truly grateful for those who persevere through some of these. The Upanisads are more difficult, but we are going to be moving on to, I think, the Bible next, the Apothecaries. I think there's 3 parts to what I'm trying to do. I'll publish it. I'll publish what I'm going to do in an image shortly once I find it. But hope you enjoyed the Upanisads. Please leave your comments on this entire series of the Upanishad series and also the Nag Hammadi series. We're going to continue, persevere, and we'll never stop. go on this journey together, and I thank you all for listening to this. I truly appreciate you. I want to say God bless to everyone for listening, and cascade this to others who would benefit. Until next time, God bless to you all, and thank you again from my heart.